example here. Oh, I did something video, I don't know, some days ago, maybe a week ago. Danny Boyd said he wanted to know about welders and snips and how to cut sheet metal and that kind of thing. Wanted to know what is this thing called, a nibbler is. So I told him I'd do it, and I did the welder part, but didn't get around to the snips part. So first thing I'm gonna do is just talk about different kinds of snips. These, which you see a lot of places have these, they call them aviation snips. They're almost always in packs of 3. There's green, red, and yellow. And they say the yellow are for straight cuts, and red are for right hand cuts, and the green are for left hand cuts, which is sort of right. These ones were cheap clones. If you can find ones that are made by Wiss, these will be pretty good, these aviation snips. I don't like these particular ones because sometimes they don't cut well. Expect to cut the metal and it folds the metal over, and that's really aggravating. These are the same thing, but they have green and red and red and yellow and red. They're the equivalent of the green, red, and yellow. And these ones have to be Craftsman, and they work fairly well. Aviation snips are serrated in here. They have serrations. I watched a guy do a video. You can see him right there, maybe right there. Where you notice that, I could take a little cut. I have some steel here and some aluminum. I have a lot of aluminum because of all the airplane stuff I've done. So I have some aluminum here. I'm just gonna snip a piece of that off. I don't know if you can see it in the video or not. There's serrations right here, and bless you. So you can hear it, and when you have that, you've got to take a file or something and knock that off.
You can see the serrations in this shot.
Like this. Just knock that off and deburr it. I saw a video on YouTube, and I don't remember who it was. Some guy says he didn't like tin snips. He thought tin snips were terrible because they make these serrations, and he just like blew off the whole thing, and you need to find another way to cut sheet metal. No. The aviation snips are like that. And the reason, I don't know the reason, but the one thing, aviation snips, you can make little cuts, like really, really short, round cuts, and they're really nice having those serrations because they'll allow you to do that. But then you have to deburr it afterwards. But it's the aviation snips that do that. So just be aware of that, and that's what they're for. See, what else do I have? I have these, which you see a lot of people. Kim, you can help me with this. Who uses the flashing? Roofers?
Yeah, gutters and downspouts.
Gutters and downspouts. A lot of people with the flashing have these. They buy them at big box stores. This brand is Malco M12. I think that's the size of it. These are really nice for light gauge aluminum and steel. They cut very straight. You almost can't make them curve. This is another pair I got because I've had those probably for 20 years. These I bought because those are getting worn out. These are basically the same thing, but these the brand name on these are Cobalt. And these, when you cut,
I think that's Lowe's.
What's that?
Cobalt is Lowe's, I believe.
Well, what did I say?
You just said Cobalt. I was just.
Oh yeah, Lowe's. But these cut very nicely, but you just about can't cut curve because they're made so straight, and they don't leave any serrations. But it wouldn't hurt to deburr that. Now, these are a pair of Wiss snips. These are A11. They have different sizes, like A9, A10, A11. Bigger the number, the bigger they are. And this is also a straight cut. And then this is a Wiss, but you can see the different shape here of these blades. This pair right here, you can cut curves. and it works rather well. You can't cut as tight a curve as you could with those aviation snips, but they do not leave serrations as well. So let's see. I kind of want to cover some stuff with snips. I'll make a mark here. I'll do a couple of things. Show what happens, how you can make snips work well for you. Say I want to cut on that line, and I'm going to use. Say I'm going to use these. So let's say this is a big thing, and I'm going to cut right here. What happens is, see, that fits in the throat of the snips, and it starts to bend the sheet metal. It'll bend the piece that I want, the big piece, bends it up, bends the other one down. I end up with this permanent bend in the, let's say you're cutting the middle of a sheet, you'll have such a permanent bend in that, you'll never get it out. So the way you deal with that, do it again. The way you relieve that problem, say I want to cut on this line again, but I don't want that. That curve in that sheet metal. So what I'll do is I'll cut close to that, but not on it. Then I take a second cut on that line. Just leave that little ribbon there, and it'll put all the stresses in the small piece. And you see that small piece will curl up. Oops, I'm getting the handle on it. We'll get in the all the stresses will end up in this piece, and this will end up pretty darn straight. And the smaller you make this, like if you're using a big sheet, you got to cut in the middle of it, cut out maybe an inch, and then get closer and closer. And each time you get closer, it'll put all the stress in the little tiny piece, and the big piece that you want won't have any stresses in it. Then you really need to deburr that because it's got some edges on it that are not nice. There's a couple of ways to do that. You can take a file and you can knock it down like that. There's a tool. There's a deburring tool that you get from aircraft supply places. This thing isn't real expensive. And you just take this and you run along here. And it just makes two little peelies off each side. And see how that works? Those two blades just makes a real nice edge there, so you don't hurt yourself and you don't cut yourself on the edges. The other thing that you should do after you finish cutting like this, what I do is I take just a tiny little cut off each corner. And I take a file go like that. Leave a nice little round edge there so you won't cut yourself on it. And the project will look better. If it's a riveted together structure like an aircraft, that'll show. And you don't want just like a sharp corner. And if you're welding, if it's steel, it doesn't matter if that's there. You're going to be able to weld over that. But the point is, you have something like this sharp edge, you cut here, and you got this point. Man, if you're working and you touch that, it just slice you open. And that's not fun. And if you catch yourself on this, nothing's going to happen. You know, so we used to say, remember to cut corners, which you really don't want to do. But cut the corners off and then round them off and make them so they're deburred. So that edge is deburred nicely. And those edges are done. Okay, let's see. What else? let's say I don't have a good, I might need some help with this. How can I do this? Yeah, I can do it like this. Let's say I have a radius that I want to cut. And you may do that with, you may have a pattern or compass or something that you do that with. You're not going to cut that with this straight cut snips. It won't do it. So you use these, which are almost straight cut snips, but they will cut that curve. And you see what I'm doing? I'm leaving a ribbon so that I put all the stresses in the ribbon. So then I cut on the line with these, and it's just like the other snips, where you can see what's happening. It's putting all the stresses from that cut in a little ribbon that I'm cutting off. And the big piece that I'm going to use all the stresses went into this piece. This piece is nice and flat, and it's usable. Where'd I set the...
Is it commercial aircraft quality cuts?
Then I'm going to deburr it. Oh, the other thing, using this deburring tool, always pull away from your hand, and that'll work. If you hold somewhere else and try to pull towards you, it'll catch and bend the sheet metal and chatter. It'll really make a mess. So always pull away from your hand. And then if you're not completely happy with the deburring job, and sometimes, like I see a little chattery business here, just finish it off like that. And then this one, I don't really need to cut the corner because it's already kind of cut. Just knock a little, put a little radius there so it's not going to hurt you. And this one, probably do need to make a little tiny, just a little snip off the corner, like that. I'm shakier than I used to be, so I gotta, even before I was shaky, I used to use the table a lot to brace that up. So I've got my radius that I drew out, and then I have this where I won't get hurt, and I got this where I won't get hurt. And you might have make this radius to fit something on your car or whatever you're building. So let's see what else. Let's see. Now look at this piece, this scrap. Gotta be really careful with scraps because that'll just tear you up. And a lot of times, even the scraps that I'm gonna throw in the scrap bin, I at least make a couple of. I might not dress it all up with a file, but I at least cut it off so it won't tear myself up with it. Because someday I'll be reaching in a scrap bin to get a little piece of metal I need, and man, I'll be getting stitches. Okay, let's see, what else I want to talk about. Left hand and right hand, which are really not left hand and right hand. The straight cut aviation snips, I hardly ever use them. It's like this pair, the red ones, that curly Q is going to go down here. The green ones, that curly Q is going to come up here. And you got to think about what you're cutting and where you want that to go. So let's say you're working on a fender that curves around like this, and you want to make a cut. You don't want that curl to go inside because it's going to make it really difficult to cut. You want that curl to come out here. So look at which snips you're using and think about where that curly Q is going to go and make sure it goes out. It's something I use to demonstrate that. I already flopped this can off earlier with a pretty crude cut there. But this, I'm going to cut on the curved side that I want it. I want that curly Q. I don't want that curly Q to go inside the can, because if it goes inside the can, it's just going to get all bunched up. But if you go on the outside of the can, it just makes a real nice cut. Let's just say I try to do it this way on this side. You see, it's just not going to work. It's going because the can is on the side that's going to try to curl away. That's not going to work. So let's say you did need to make a cut on the top, you get the green pair and the curly Q, you come away like that. I'm using a can, little thin can as a demonstration, but where you use this, it's like on part of a fender where it's curved, or something where you're working on something that's curved. You got to know which way you want this curly Q to go. So rather than calling these left and right hand, which is how they're sold, I just look at them and see where I want that curly Q going. And as long as you can figure that out, which I'm sure you can, you can make a lot of use of those. And yeah, they make little serrations. Big deal. You can dress that up. Something like that, you see, you remember how nasty that looked. Well, now you could draw a perfect circle on there and cut. It'd be perfect. By the way, these cans, I've measured them. They're 4 thousandths thick. It's pretty thin sheet metal. If you ever need a thin piece of sheet metal, on an airplane, there's a compass, the old-fashioned compass. There's a little card that shows you the errors of the compass, and you have to have that. And I used to make a little thing to put those cards in. I'd make them out of this, and I'd just bend it up and rivet it on with 1 or 2 aluminum rivets, and weighed nothing. Held the compass card real well. Nice 4 thousandths beer can or soda can. Okay, next I want to move on to the question was about a nibbler. I want to get up close on this. How this nibbler works. See this thing right here that pulls down, makes a cut. So you use the nibbler to make a cut, and it chops that piece out. Cut, and it chops the piece out. You scoot it in further. Sometimes it's hard to scoot it in further. Scoot it in further, and it chops. So you could, and this is not being nice, there. And you could make big cuts with this, and you could, if you had cut like something pretty tight, you could probably do it with the nibbler. And some people really like these. You can see mine's kind of rusty. It's because it's set in a drawer mostly. I didn't use it a lot, but there are times, and I've used this. There's a company called Knipex. Is that what those are? Those nice pliers I bought you?
They are.
Knipex makes everything. Knipex makes is wonderful, and I didn't know it was Knipex or Knipex. I went on the company website and they pronounce it Knipex. They pronounce the K. So Knipex makes a really nice
Nibbler.
Nibbler like this.
Hand nibbler. The electric nibblers and the air nibblers are fantastic for making.
You have a electric nibbler?
No, I have a set of electric shears.
Oh, like this? Oh,
yeah, those are air, but we have electric ones as well.
This is
an air nibbler or an electric nibbler will just ravage a piece of metal, and if you know how to use it, it's an excellent tool.
The hand nibblers will go slow, yeah. This is a thing that cuts. It's got 2 blades like this, and it's got a 3rd blade that comes up between like that. It's like 2 pairs of shears together. And what it does, instead of cutting like we were cutting with the snips, you end up with one piece that's a curly Q and the other piece that's flat. And you got to think about that. This makes a curly Q down the middle, and you end up with 2 flat sheets. This thing is noisy. I mean, extremely noisy. I guess I'm going to have to turn the compressor on. I need to take a break. I forget what you call this thing. What do you call this thing?
Shears.
Yeah, some kind of shears.
Go do another one.
I'm going to run out of air because I shut the compressor off. I didn't want the compressor running. And this thing sucks up the air. You end up with this curly Q in the middle. You end up with 2 flat pieces that aren't curly Q. It's real nice for that. It'll cut some pretty heavy stuff. Like you probably cut 20 gauge with this. But man, you better have a good compressor because it's gonna suck up air like there's no tomorrow. And then the last way I can think of that we cut sheet metal is, I'm not going to demonstrate it, but I'll bring a tool over here. I don't know, you call it a cutting wheel or a zip cut or all kinds of names for this thing. Oh, and of course after you do this, you want to knock the corners off with a file or something and make it so you don't have sharp edges, because that'll cut you all up. This thing, you can see how this works. Which way does this turn? I don't know. It turns.
It's got an arrow.
It's got an arrow. It turns that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we use this. It's like this, and it turns this way. The sparks come towards you, which kind of is not fun. So you kind of move off the side, you still get sparks all over you. But if the thing starts to get away from you or catches or something, it'll pull it away from you. If you got the sparks going away from you, like what would that be? Let's see, if it were turning the other way, where would I be standing? I don't know. I've done that before, and I've been called out about it. Because if that thing catches, it's going to go right up into my face, like a high-speed wheel. But this thing, like if you're cutting like a rusty spot out of the bottom of a rocker panel or something, this is probably the tool to use. But man, you got to be careful. You can hurt yourself with this. And go easy. Don't make real deep cuts. Just cut like a little bit into that wheel, and you know, like this, and just be really careful. Get some old rusty wheelbarrow or something and practice with a little bit before you get on a car. Draw a line where you want to cut with this. There's people that use these a lot, and these wheels occasionally fly apart. Uncle Tony was using one of these many years ago, and the wheel fell apart, and he ended up with one of the few times I think he had to go to actually went to the doctor, and he had stitches all on his face and a big mess. Be really careful with these things, but it is a very useful tool, and just caution, caution, caution.
It's one of the few electrical tools that we use up, like completely wear out, because it gets so much use.
I can't reach it because that table's in the way. See where that blue glove is? Right under it. There's a shield.
Did you take the shield off?
No, it was off.
And I had to take it off to get into a closed area.
So, this shield belongs on here, and you put it on here the way you need it, so that it's protecting you in case that wheel flies apart. But what happens is, it gets in the way. So we take it off sometimes and just take our chances, which is not smart. And Kim just told me, she goes, "Oh, you took the shield off." Nope, I had the shield on it. Kim, did you take the shield off for some reason?
I'm sure I did.
Okay. So,
it's always in the way.
Yeah, I know. But if you can use this with the shield on there, which a lot of times you can.
Maybe when we were using the sanding wheel.
Oh.
Let's show the other kinds of wheels.
Okay, so I know we're talking about cutting sheet metal, but I got this tool in my hand. It can do many things. If you have a wheel like this, it's a grinding wheel, and you can, like if you've welded, normally you don't grind welds, but if you're doing body work and you've got a weld, you're gonna have to grind some of it off so you can make nice, make a nice body work. But you got to make sure you got enough penetration on the other side. But you can use this as a grinder. This thing right here, we haven't used this yet. We're gonna take a stump.
Show the camera.
Okay, I thought you had it there. We're gonna take a stump and just grind the stump out kind of concave, so we can use that to form sheet metal in. This is a new cutting wheel. What else do we have here? This is a grinding wheel I put down. Oh, this is a cutting wheel that partially exploded while it was being used, and pieces all flew off of it. I don't know if anybody got hurt. Hopefully not.
Mostly just my feelings.
That's just your feelings. This is a flapper wheel, which is a very good sanding wheel. And these things, I thought these things were kind of a joke when they first came out. But when I got one, I saw a few other people use them. I thought, man, that does work. And I got one, and they all come in all different grits. This one's 36 grit. And you want to take some metal off in a hurry, this will really go after it. But you got to be careful. The metal will get hot, and you'll warp sheet metal with this.
Right.
So go at it easy, or go at stuff that's thick.
It's for removing material, not for polishing
Oh.
or sanding or finishing in any way. You need an orbital sander
This
to
one's
do
a
finishing.
36 grit. I think we have some around here that are 80, but they all remove material extremely fast. But I mean, if you got something that's ugly, nasty, this is a nice thing. We have some old steel out here that was welded into another structure, and we've cut apart. Sometimes we get pieces of it, and there'll be like a weld somewhere that we don't want the weld there. I'll just take it off with this, and smooth it out. Now I got a piece of material, and the weld is gone. So these have good use. But anyway, if you're using this as a cutter, be really careful. I don't think I have anything else.
Call to action. You say, what do you use to cut? What have you learned about cutting and that you think is important? What did I miss? Ask a Matt.
Oh. And then for those of you that do a lot of body work or do work, what did I miss? What do you guys use for cutting? Or what do you women use for cutting? I say guys, and then Kim's standing here. I've seen Kim uses all these tools, and I worry about her. Where'd you get caught in? The bench grinder? Something got caught in the bench grinder and tore your fingers all up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just something grabbed into the bench grinder while she was working. Bled badly, but the cuts weren't that bad. Because the amount of blood, we thought it was a lot worse. And when she uncovered it and I cleaned it was like, oh, those are little.
I mean, it was sore for a month, but I healed.
Yeah, but they weren't.
It was
You were
nothing
lucky.
terrible.
You were really lucky.
Well, I was careful, and I still made a mistake.
So in the comments, if you see things I left out, if you see mistakes I made, if you have stories of your own, let me know. And I don't know what I'll do next. Okay, Danny Boyd wanted welding, covered that. Cutting sheet metal. Maybe we'll actually weld some sheet metal. You know, something we need to do is I cut a piece of metal a couple months ago for the Valiant floor, because there's a spot in the floor. The floors in the Valiants are real good, except one spot where somebody probably got in with their wet feet all the time. And there's a rusty spot there, and it's about this big. So we'll cut that out and weld that in maybe, so show some a sheet metal repair on a floor. There's no reason to replace the whole floor on that thing. It's a small piece. And right now I've got the rubber mat covering it, and the rubber mat moves, and then I'll be driving along, I look down, I see the pavement going by. I'd like to fix that. So, okay, maybe we'll do that next. Maybe we'll do something else. I don't know. I never know what we're gonna do. So take care, everybody.